There you go. Perfect. All right, everyone. Welcome. Sound check. Can you hear me?
That was me. Sorry.
Perfect. Okay. Welcome again to our 25th edition of the Community Service Fabric Community Q&A. And this is our time zone edition, the second one we do on Thursday evening. As usual, make sure that you put your questions into the IM chat window, and we'll try and get to all of the questions that we can during this hour. What was that, Mikkel?
Yeah, which time zone?
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. What is the time that people are dialing?
Whatever time this is for you, we hope it's convenient for you. Okay, let's.
How many folks do we have?
Let's get started. Oh, we've got some coming in now.
Where's the source code for Service Fabric DLL?
Is this Fabric Deployer?
Hmm?
The source code that he's asking for, because that isn't.
Service Fabric DLL. I'm gonna look for that one, Marcin, the Service Fabric DLL that you're asking for. I actually might think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this deal actually.
Oh, he wants to create a PR to expose read-only span. Only phase for several days. That's the rather inefficient binary reader. Oh, I see. Okay. So, are you guys gonna try and look for that now?
Yeah, I think Mikkel is. We can probably go to the Matt's question.
So we'll make sure we get back to you on that, Marcin.
So Matt asked wait, did I skip one? No. The convention in the company I work for is for our development squads to handle our products from development through to running in production. Therefore, the developers on a given team needs access to our production clusters. However, we also need to silo their permissions to their specific applications. Is there a permission model in Service Fabric that supports this?
Nope, there is not. There is no. There's no granular access. It's either admin access to the cluster or it's read access to the cluster.
Do we have like the MSI support today exists for nodes, right? The MSI support.
Yes.
For nodes. So could they have applications on node types in an individual cluster and have that managed by MSI?
So it depends on when we talk about management.
Yeah.
It depends on what it is. If it's access to the Service Fabric APIs to do management, either through CLI, PowerShell, or the Service Fabric Explorer.
Yeah.
Those APIs are only protected. There you are either admin or reader.
I see.
So it's you can do anything or you can only read.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So I think
if it's things like if it's things like deployments and upgrades, it is possible to do that for applications through ARM. So because ARM is R-backed, it has granular permission level.
Yeah.
You could actually get access to do application deployments and stuff like that, but only through ARM then, on a more granular level.
I see. So I guess to answer this question, the answer is no.
So Matt, what are the scenarios that you want to give them access to, the operations they need to do?
If you want to open your mic, Matt, that's okay.
Yeah, feel free to.
All right, well, here's typing it.
Did you find the deal for Marcin?
Yeah, I'm trying to see what's. Yes, so. Okay.
You're still looking at that.
All right, while Matt is typing that in, let's move on to these. This is straightforward from Wit, hopefully. Is it possible to add node types to the cluster after it's been created?
Yes, yeah, it is. You want to walk through?
Go ahead.
Okay, so yes, it is. So okay, are you on-prem? Are you in Azure? For that question.
Azure.
Azure. Yeah. So basically in Azure, if you had the ARM template you originally did, you just add a second scale set in there. that basically ends up constituting that node type. So, simplistically, copy paste the scale set already defined in your ARM template and add it as a secondary scale set, and just run an incremental deployment through ARM, and that should just add a new scale set and a new node type to the cluster.
Great, thanks.
Okay. And Whit, I think this might be a follow-up from this morning. He's asking to upgrade any silver or better node type that is primary. Okay. Is it just a matter of modifying the skew in the VM scale set and everything it automatically migrates to the new machines, or is it more involved? I don't know if you noticed, because maybe you do. If not, we might have to get back to you.
Yeah, there is. So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to upgrade the skew of the nodes, or?
Well, especially since there's a limit as to the number of nodes you can have, it occurred to me if I ever wanted to just upgrade them, scale up instead of necessarily out, and then scale the whole thing backwards, how easily would that be able to be done?
So just scale up instead of scaling up.
Yeah. So instead of just constantly just adding more machines for additional compute, what if I just switch skews altogether, just got a much better machine, waited for that to complete, and then just scale the thing down massively?
Yes. So the way that this works in scale sets is that you end up actually have to re-image all the machines. It's not like the VM is not being moved or restarted with a different specification. It's actually new VMs that are being brought up. So the time it's going to take a fairly long time, depending on the number of nodes you have, to make the skew change. That's one of it.
Okay, so I guess alternatively, can you just spin up an entirely new node type and then transfer the services to it?
Yeah.
And then just delete the original one?
Yes,
yeah,
and that's probably
actually that's funny, because I had a customer call this week about that situation. So typically when people run with multiple node sets, they use placement constraints and placement decorations on the nodes to sort of say where the services should run. And a little gotcha they came into is that they actually deployed their applications using the node type name as the placement constraint. Which sort of caught them in this situation. They actually had to do redeploy upgrades of their applications to change those placement constraints. So you can change it to service description, by the way, but because they use default services, they have to go and upgrade stuff. So if you end up doing that, make sure you use placement constraints based on some convention, like worker nodes or whatever you want to call them. So in that sense, you can actually have the applications deployed and constrained to run on whatever let's say you call them worker nodes. Then you add your new node type set, get it in there, then you add that decoration to them, and now you can have the services bridge all of them. Then you can go back and update the old node type set to not have that decoration, which will cause all the services to move, and then finally get rid of that node type set. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess could you explain deeper why you won't use the node type name? Because I guess I use that too, and I'm pretty sure that came from the document.
Yeah, no, they were just in this situation where they actually wanted to bring in a new. So if you bring in a new node type and you want to move all your services over, you have to both bring in the node type and then upgrade, change all the application definitions. In the case where you use some, the placement is not based on node type, but let's say in a situation where you have master nodes and worker nodes, right? Then you should just decorate the scale types the scale sets that you use for worker nodes with something like worker nodes equal true or whatever it is. So when you add the new scale set in, you can actually both have the new scale set and the old scale set have that. So now the services can run across both, and then remove the placement constraints from. So you don't have to end up doing an application upgrade as well to have the services fall over to the new scale set.
I gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I guess that's I found a doc that might be helpful, Matt. I'm going to post that in the IM. It's actually Whit. Or Whit. Sorry, Whit.
Yeah. So third question that Whit asks is, why isn't it necessarily this easy to upgrade the primary node type? Why is
Not that that's necessarily easy, though.
Yeah. Why is it that the cluster would be unavailable for time if it's reliably migrating itself to the new machines? So you're asking me if you, so the issue that happens with the primary node types is that we have the system services running on it, and our system services are essentially stateful service fabric services. So they can run into an issue if you don't meet the quorum requirements, and that's when the cluster goes into like an unresponsive state. But you mentioned like reliably migrating itself to the new machines. So if you set up a new node type and then moved your like you set can you migrate primary node types?
No, I don't think you can.
Okay.
I mean, you can't. I don't think you can change that scale set. You can change. You can add. You can. I don't think you can add in a new scale set, which should then be the seed nodes or the primary node types. I don't think you can do that.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So is there no way to just simply throw more machines at it to say you can at least maintain some kind of quorum through that while it's upgrading, or is it the rule just don't change that type?
No, you can definitely do that. So you have the reliability and durability, and I always mess them up.
Yeah.
But one of them indicates the number of replicas that the system services run with.
That's right here.
And okay, yeah. So one of them defines the number of replicas that the system services run with, which means that you need to have that number of nodes at least available in the primary node types, right? So if you go to like 9 replicas of system services, you need 9 nodes available in the primary node type. So I guess if you want to do that skew upgrade or on the primary node type, that's probably one of the problematic situations. I'm actually not aware to the extent that we support that scenario, to be quite honest. So I might need to get back to you about that.
That's fine. Thanks.
So some of the, I don't know, with that the doc I sent may be helpful. Some of the questions that you asked are actually documented in that doc.
Yes.
If you haven't seen that, I'm not sure if you have or not.
Yeah, I believe you can change the skews of a primary node type once you set it up. Cool. Yeah.
All right, where are we? I went all the way down. Okay, so that was his. That was.
I guess yeah. So there's some other document. I don't think it was this one that did explain. Here's how to actually swap out the skews, but it did say that there would be downtime. So I guess the question had more to do with if the downtime is caused by the lack of quorum, could you just add additional machines so that won't necessarily be a problem, and it swap them out while staying alive, or can it simply not do that?
I actually don't think you can do it on the primary node types, but let me confirm that. I guess if it's not the primary node types, then maybe the downtime refers to the fact that why wouldn't? So maybe the thing is that the skew upgrade doesn't honor the UD walk because it essentially needs to be a new scale set or something like that. I'm just making up a story right now. I'm guessing a little bit.
I shared the link in the documentation to, I guess, the directions.
I was actually just going to share that link to you until I saw you don't fix
that.
We recommend that you don't change that. Yeah, so, skill set no time. This is running a slower durability or higher.
The silver makes sense because, it's infrastructure aware.
Yeah, we actually do not, it states in there, we do not support changing skew on the primary node type.
Yeah, and just to go back to your second question really quick, the recommended path there is to actually set up a new node type and then migrate your services over and then decommission the old one and don't do in-place skew upgrades, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because at that point where it's an entirely BMSS operation, and BMSS has no knowledge of any service fabric services that are running, so it's a data destructive operation if you do in-place upgrades. We can't guarantee that we do things while maintaining state, if you have any. So you should stand up new ones, migrate, and then decommission.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we're standing.
Since I can't find your DLL, I have to defer that question and get back to you. I would assume that it's probably not out there.
So, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure this DLL does not exist. The source code for this DLL is not open sourced. Because we had a similar ask on our open source, on our actual GitHub repository.
Okay.
So actually, let me dig that up. It was by Dr. Nick.
Mr. Nick.
So Marcin, what is this?
No, it's actually wet still.
Ask that question.
Mm-mm. Oh, you went back to Marcin's question?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
we still
good
have
deal.
we still have it in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
you
still
still
had
have
that
it.
open.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Did we answered Matt's question, right? Or did
Yes.
I don't. Did you have a follow up?
He did that.
Okay. So it's with again.
But yeah, it's with. But I think this is also a follow up from this morning for the gRPC custom serialization.
It is.
Asking for it is. Is there any example repos that demo using Bond or gRPC custom serialization with Service Fabric V2 remoting? Do you know that?
No, there's no.
There isn't. You know for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
There isn't that in any of our GitHub samples right now.
Okay.
Yeah. That's something.
I'm happy to see that I didn't miss it then.
That's some good feedback that we can take back though to the engineering side and write some samples up on these.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Marcin, do you have any benchmarks to share against RSL Paxos? Why would someone want to use RSL when there's Service Fabric with replicators built on top of failure detection service? What should at least theoretically be more efficient? What are the potential advantages of the Paxos-based RSL? Wow. As far as I know, we don't have any benchmarks against Azure's RSL. Why would someone want to use RSL when there is Service Fabric with the replicators built on top of failure detection service? Okay.
Sorry, I don't know that area, Marcin.
I mean, so like the failure detection part is essentially what Paxos does, and I think the question, Marcin, that you're asking is why would somebody want to use that when Service Fabric does all of that, but with replication on top?
I think I will come back with the question when Matt will be back.
Yeah.
Shoot an email to Matt. Find him somewhere online and give him that question. He will be the right person to contact. And he probably has an opinion or two about it as well.
Yeah, I think Matt's absolutely the right person for this.
I thought he was him.
Deep. Hello, Deep.
He said he might show, but he didn't. Matt. No, Matt.
Hey, Marcin, I'm gonna message this.
I'm just here for the standalone questions. Stefan told me they're coming. We're coming.
Came all the way for that.
I'm gonna get up in 5 minutes.
Cool.
I have a meeting at 5. Is Marcin here as well?
So Matt did have a. Did we follow up with Matt? Marcin is here. Yes.
No, we did not.
I thought we did.
Okay.
So
Because he says my mic isn't working. We would just like to avoid a situation where developers can interact with other team applications.
But he also said your answer is good enough. We can use our deployment system to handle this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's good.
I mean, you can always give them read access, right? So at least they can get some information out of there. That's what you want to see.
There's a good one. Yeah. Is there a time frame for Linux Service Fabric release for on-prem servers?
This is why I showed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stefan. We're currently in our phase where we're trying to plan the timeline for this, like right now. So I'll probably have a better answer for you in a few weeks, but it is looking like the next couple of months. So we're working on it right now. We have made significant progress on it, and we're getting there. So it is coming up. I'll have a better update for you soon. So just be on the lookout. And then the second part, which is after Linux release, would it be possible to run a hybrid Windows Linux? No, it won't. So that has nothing to do with on-prem or not on-prem. There are certain things in Service Fabric today that like use Windows-specific components that won't just work when you move to Linux. So until we resolve those things and make the platform bits exactly the same across Windows and Linux, or at least running in the same way across Windows and Linux, it won't actually work, and it'll take us a little while, a little longer to actually pull that off. And a similar question of this sort was there in the morning session where Matt Snyder gave a very nice and more detailed answer on the exact stuff that's not available under the Linux OS that we use in Windows. So if you want to check that out, I would recommend having a look at that. But if you're thinking about hybrid in terms of across cloud environments, if you're thinking about on-premise plus Azure, that is possible today, even though it's not in support, because technically you could take VM instances in Azure as nodes and then have them in the same subnet as your physical machines or your on-prem VMs and put them into a standalone cluster. In terms of supporting that, we're also investigating how we're going to pull that off in the future. I don't really have any dates for that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, actually, before I finish talking about that, though, we are investing a lot, and this is just not the service traffic team, but also the Windows Server and the containers team, into something called LCA, which is Linux containers on Windows. And basically, that would solve your problem of wanting to run Linux and Windows workloads in the same place at the same time. Because effectively, what you'd be able to do is containerize your stuff, and even though the base OS inside the containers might be a combination of Linux and Windows, you'd be able to run all that stuff on Windows hosts. So if you're looking forward to deploying Linux workloads and Windows workloads in the same cluster, there is a solution coming probably a lot sooner than us figuring out like the cross OS cluster. So I'd say be on the lookout for that, because that is more in the frame of like several months as opposed to we don't know. So that would probably be a better path to go down.
Ilcow, that's like the worst, like. Anyway.
It's one of my favorite ones. As a Hindu, I like cows. It's good. Cow is good.
Cow works.
All right,
so Isaac is running a service fabric cluster across data centers on-prem with supported configuration.
Yes.
So, what are the main issues or requirements in doing so?
Yes.
And Marcy and I were telling me you need at least 3 DCs.
Well, so Marcin, that is true. We would require that you have 3 data centers, but that's just for your fault tolerance. You can always technically lie to service fabric and claim that your fault domains span more than 2, but then obviously our high availability and reliability will go into question because you've obviously abstracted away true fault domains from your physical infrastructure. So we do recommend if you're spanning data centers as a fault domain, then you should have at least 3. This is possible today. This is supported today. In terms of what you'd want to think about for it is the main issue. We have several customers that are doing this. The main issue tends to be network, where if you span data centers that are cross-Atlantic or at least like cross-country even, you have issues where latency has to be low across all your machines. Otherwise, obviously, we can't spin up and down services fast. And also, we have caps in our leasing layer to assume that a node is actually available for handling workloads. So I would say make sure your network spans the data centers correctly, and you can have access from any node in any data center across to other nodes and other data centers. The second issue tends to be security. Like many times, people have security configurations or NSGs that are set on the bounds of each data center. If you do a service traffic cluster across multiple data centers, you'd be looking at effectively coming up with a security policy that spans multiple data centers, which could obviously make you more vulnerable. But at the same time, it should work. We also have, some users that have decided that in going into production, they wanted clusters that were independent across their data center. So they have one cluster in data center A, another cluster in data center B, and basically a traffic load balancer at the front that sits in front and routes based on like an incoming IP of a request, for example, to like East US versus West US. That is also a fine model to approach. The downside there tends to be you now have to deal with the management of 2 clusters instead of 1. So that means, each time you do an upgrade, each time you do an app upgrade or a cluster upgrade or a config upgrade, you're doing that twice as many times as you would have been doing otherwise. So it is, I would say that if you have, 3 data centers and you're investigating using service traffic standalone, it's perfectly fine as long as you can deal with the network and the security stuff. Cool.
And to answer your question, Marcin, so I talked to Matt about the RSL thing briefly, and the comments were that within Azure, RSL was mainly replaced by Service Fabric. So a lot of the underlying infrastructure that was actually written using RSL was actually replaced by Service Fabric in most places.
Thanks a lot. So it was exactly like as I thought, that the Service Fabric is superior to RSL. Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Somebody asked a gRPC question. There's actually an old issue I just pulled up, and someone pulled together some POC stuff around it. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
I think this is a question for you, maybe?
Yeah, so we have a question about the diagnostic store retention being set for 7 days, and appears that it's not being respected as a lot of 4 gigabytes of data are being written, but in a bunch of the places they're not being deleted. So I think the thing is here, I'm looking at one of my cluster templates from a recent cluster, and in the new templates, I'm not sure how old this one is that you're using, Mark, but these not only are the diagnostics being written to the nodes, but also being uploaded to Azure Table Storage on Azure Storage, and there you can set, you have obviously like much more capacity, and you can set retention limits there if you want. And I can also send what that JSON looks like to get that enabled. Additionally, I'll follow up with the engineers who work on the space to see like why this might be happening.
There were some log retention settings that were added in 6.2, I think.
Were there?
Yes, there were.
There's container log settings that were added. In
No,
6.2.
but also, I mean, if the log's being written to the local hosts, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's being written to another location though. That's from that JSON. It looks like it's being written to a public share.
There's the diagnostic store session. Maybe that was just a fix that came in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is reset. So this is an on-prem deployment using the last minor release.
Which version of the cluster are you on?
So it's on-prem. So
It's 6.2.
Azure Storage, not sure.
Okay, so
Why don't-
6.2. I'll dig up some old email thread about this. Let me know, and I'll let you know what I find, because I remember a customer conversation I had about this.
Yeah, why don't we take this as we can follow up.
Yeah.
And in the future, if you see some like a bug or something like, that is not working as expected, we have our GitHub issues page where you can file these, and we're all looking there.
Any issues? Wow. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, we do. Doc
Can you request
question.
Can you request for documentation that describes your level collections data structures in terms of inner workings and time complexity?
Do we have anything yet?
The videos.
So the
Yeah.
videos that we have on Channel 9. So if you go to
Let's find it.
I'll link it to you. So we have videos on YouTube where we do deep dives with
Oh,
engineers.
it's with already. He's already doing that right now.
Yeah, so we had a series of videos. I don't think it's even over yet.
No, it's not.
Seriously.
We have a long way.
Yeah, but we have
it's going to be an ongoing series.
We just
So
got
we
a
have
thumbs
the
up from it.
engineer who actually
Very
built the product, just doing like 45, 50-minute whiteboard sessions about the inner workings of all of these.
Yep.
And I don't think even trying to capture that thing in a document, it would just be like an endless task.
So
So
the video's fine.
yeah, definitely go and watch those videos.
But speaking to your time complexity thing, we don't have any that's a common ask actually. It's like benchmarks for like performance and reliable collections.
Data structure in terms of inner workings and time complexity. I don't know what do you mean by time complexity?
Probably actually means like
How long transaction takes? Or?
I don't know. Yeah, if you're looking for specific like timings, then that could be that's a variable.
Is it complexity? Yeah, okay.
Well, what?
Yeah, sorry. In terms of just like, so for example, there's a key filter, and it's not very clear as, for example, if the key filter goes through the entire key set, as opposed to like, taking into consideration the ranges, assuming that the index is like ordered. Let's say I want like give me all values, less than this. Just those kind of nuances, so that if I have like a large database, then I can actually like plan my queries better.
Who did the reliable collections one?
So reliable collections would probably be Preeta.
Yeah, Preeta did a video about reliable collections and the inner workings of those.
All of my questions on GitHub, I think. But I think it would be very useful to have like official documentation on the main site, so that when my engineers are working on it, we don't have to guess what we have to write.
That's good feedback, Thea.
Yeah.
So is that in terms of recommendations,
Yes.
like recommended practices and how to use them?
Yeah, I think just in terms of like what is the, for example, it's very unclear as to what is the access time for a read on the reliable dictionary. It's not clear on the iteration, what the cost of an iteration is going to be. Just in terms of the number of operations involved, like what, just the the worst case time complexity.
Yeah, so he's actually asking like big off here.
Huh?
He actually wants like time complexity, like it's like big O and whatever.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I need to expose that.
Do you have any time when the backup and restore reliable collections via policies will move from preview to production?
Um,
Are we doing that for 6.3 or is it?
No, usually I don't think it's landing at 6.3.
Okay.
But so we have to ask Matt.
Okay, so we're
Matt's
currently
a PM on this.
yeah. Okay, so we're currently on 6.2 and with a 6.3 release coming up probably in July. So between July and end of year 6.3, 6.4, 6.5 is currently the schedule. I would expect we do it before the end of year. But I don't know if there are specific blockers for us to be able to do that.
Yep.
What's used inside the reliable dictionaries?
Some kind of B-tree skip
That
list.
would that be in the video?
It's not in the video.
No.
It's definitely not in the video. But I don't think it's in either. It's just,
GitHub article that GitHub ticket that addresses this. So let me just find the link for that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I see.
Oh, it's a quiz?
No, it's
He's asking.
He's
if it's
asking
in the
us in the
video.
video. I don't think that.
Which said that she offered to get into it, but someone decided it was low level enough. Apparently, nothing's low level enough from our sin, so
That's deep.
which is
That's
great.
You know what we should do? Maybe we should bring these engineers to some of these QAs. Just let's
Yeah.
do like a QA for reliable collections. Would you guys like that?
Becomes very eye-opening.
Yeah.
Would you have questions for stuff like that? Instead of just hearing us PMs rattling off some story about how we think things
two
work.
of them.
They'd probably appreciate a lot of questions that come through in this community.
Yeah, it'll be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, we'll definitely let you know what's in.
Absolutely. So we can prepare.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's keep that over.
I think we should set that up.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Because I think we would learn a lot too from like this question. Like this is a great question.
Yeah,
It's just like I have no idea.
there is so much to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Maybe
Yeah,
let's
we'll
see if
give
we
them
can do that.
Yeah, we can.
At least set aside like maybe half an hour of the Q&A
We'll
to
do
do
a-
like specific topic and then
Yeah, well, I mean,
This
we'll
time
do
is
a,
good.
yeah, we'll do a regular Q&A in the morning
Yeah.
and do a specific one in the time.
Because in the time zone one, it looks like we're getting a lot of like in-depth questions.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean,
fewer
there's,
people-
and it's a lot of follow-up as well.
Yeah.
There's follow-up questions from this morning that we're getting as well. So, pretty good.
By the way, Merson, I asked the engineer on the question. So as soon as he or she gets back to me, I asked for multiple ones. I can let you know.
Yeah, so the System Fabric DLL, it's part of a managed code and it's still in the process of being open sourced, Martin, so there's a reason why you can't find it yet. And the whole open sourcing of the rest of the product there is really about it's really about untangling some of the system with internal dependencies that we have today that we can bring with it into the open. It's not like we don't want to do it. It just takes a little bit of time to get through those things. So it will come eventually.
That link that Tejas just posted gets into the complexity of things quite well, actually. And Preeta is the one who responded to that question.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can reach out to her.
Interesting. This is really interesting.
This product is crazy. Did you just say that?
Crazy, awesome.
There's just so much to learn always.
There is so much out there. There is so much. Yes.
So
Man, I can't use it. It's open source contributed.
Not in all.
Is that his usual response to you?
Yeah.
I see.
Now that we've open sourced.
I mean, it looks like he's taking the macro up quite well.
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome.
We love it.
Good stuff, Marcin.
So the fabric lock root thing, there's a old GitHub issue here. I wanted to get back to that one. That was actually stuff. So I think if you, I'm sorry, but I don't remember who asked the question about the log rotation or size and disk. That was Mark. So Mark, the link I just pulled is actually an issue where we addressed some of this a while back to the customer. To be honest, I can't really see if that hit exactly on the question you have, but it might be a good pointer because there are other issues referenced in there as well. Or if you have things that you want to follow up with, open a new issue and point to this one and just put your question in there. I'll make sure we get the engineers on and help get the right answer to you.
Does the log retention settings work as well in Azure clusters? Because I have my logs are growing very large. It's getting like tens of gigabytes, and I have to clean them up manually.
Yes, they should. They will work there as well. I mean, they apply there as well, right? The configuration if you get in. The only difference in that sense is that we have this the data collection agent or the DCA, which takes these logs and passes them and throws them into the storage account, which basically means you should be able to run with a fairly low, low usage of storage on the local host because it's already being offloaded.
Yes, but I understand that DCA also deletes the logs from the external blob storage, yes?
I think there are. Well, can you actually run with both configurations? The thing is whether you can have a different. That's interesting. If you can have two diagnostic stores and have different policies. Well, basically have different policies on them, right?
I mean that because DCA takes the logs and puts them in the external store, yes, and and I probably need to change some defaults to make it delete the logs afterwards, yes, because by default it does not delete the logs.
Correct. Yeah, but that's, yes. But the thing is whether you can have, well, this is only the diagnostic store section. I need to get back to you on that, Marcin, specifically how if you can have, I don't know if you can have different, deletion policies around these. Like if you specify a 7-day deletion, if that accrues both to the local store and then what's in the storage account, where you can have them being different, right? I guess what you want to have, you want to run with a fairly quickly clean up on the nodes, but have a longer history of data in your storage account, right?
Yes, something like that would be nice, but also that the data retention in the blob account is also enforced. So that would be also helpful.
Yeah.
But I'm probably missing something because I didn't make a deep dive into this, but it's something that I've observed, that the logs are growing and growing in the storage.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
So, which team can I address questions regarding discovering the ETW provider in Visual Studio, server-side resources running on F#, and having a difficult time getting VS to discover the event source classes automatically? So just to confirm, Tejas, this is just regarding the event sources of your code and not the ETW from the Service Fabric events, correct? And you're using the diagnostics viewer. I believe that's the title of the window in Visual Studio.
I remember that there were an issue where, depending on the folder structure in your solution and projects, some of them would not be searched for these providers. I'm just trying to see if I can find that issue, whether those things that never got fixed. So maybe it might not be that it's F#. It might be the structure of the file structure of your solution there.
Yeah, I haven't seen any customers use F# with the event source, so I'm not sure about how that works in the back end, but I think that's irrespective of Service Fabric, right?
I think it generally works on F#. I have no issues. I think the only problem I'm having is with event sources. And it's not a big issue. I can always go and manually add my provider into the diagnostic output, but it's always this extra step every time I try to debug my application.
Yeah.
So I just need to like figure out like what logic is being used to like discover the providers. And it's very likely that F# is emitting like slightly different IL code, maybe like the class is nested or something, so I do not know. So I just need to like
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just need to figure out like if someone can give me a guideline on like how Visual Studio discovers the available event sources in your current solution, that would be ideal.
Yeah, so that's something that
So I'm definitely throwing you this. This was an old thing because there was a bug about discovering things. I'm just throwing all the issues at you guys. I feel like today.
I've gone through these. I think what would be more helpful is like, instead of like solving the issue, I think it would just be more useful to just like shed some light as to like the logic, so then we can actually figure out things without having to.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So this is it sounds like the issue is with Visual Studio discovering.
Right. He's just looking for a team to talk to about it. Yeah. So we're gonna try and get him.
Yeah, it's gonna be we can bridge you to the VS team for that.
I can create an issue on service on the GitHub page so that you guys can track it on that front.
Yeah, do that. You can reference the 470 stuff if that's what you want to do.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So
because it should have been fixed a while back, this thing.
So it asked about Smook's video. In the video, he had up there one interesting thing around the 35-minute mark regarding why exactly you don't want to do reads of anything but the primary because of the false progress you might encounter in case of failure. However, he indicated that customers have wanted to be able to get a guarantee when pulling from secondaries anyway, that they wouldn't get false progress and only report what the primary had gotten to in the logs so far. Is there any ETA on when that will show up? No, I don't think so. So I know what you're referring to in the video because I watched it, and I don't think that specific functionalities, like we don't have an ETA on that functionality. Is there any specific reason?
Well, I guess to that end is just kind of a follow-up on earlier, is just trying to avoid hitting the primary for a ton of writes in one direction and then a bunch of reads in the other direction.
That's fair.
If I could span that out to say, I've got all these secondaries sitting here that are otherwise kind of idling, getting replicas. What if I could just make those all my read propagators?
So are you doing? Because you can do reads of active secondaries, but you can run into. Have you tried that?
I haven't yet. I guess I've only been rethinking it since the chat this morning.
Yeah, so you can actually do reads of active secondaries, just not idle secondaries, and but because I'd be interested in seeing what happens when you do that. So the request is when you do a read off like a secondary, if if it fails, you don't want to get an exception, but you'd rather just see what's on the primary. Is that right?
Yes, and I guess I'm slightly concerned about, in case of just catastrophic failure across the board, suddenly everything's out of sync with itself.
How often false progress?
Which is probably not very often, but still. Because I guess the data for my use case, the data has to be consistent. I'm kind of replacing, I guess, the storage queue in this case, and then I'm instead of using theirs, just kind of shuffling it through a stateful service so that other services can pull from that as they have the time to get to it. But especially since whatever I'm writing to is just going to be really hammered by all the stuff funneling to it. It's like, well, is there any way I could not necessarily do both sets of operations there?
Sorry, I'm also trying to. Is the stuff Marcin's saying also relevant to this question?
Yes, I'm thinking about my specific follow-up is that the false progress might be a bigger and smaller problem. If it appears only if there is a problem with quorum, which appears very rarely, then it's probably acceptable for a lot of users. But if it appears, for example, when some transaction is rolled back, it's I think it's one of two possible approaches to two-phase commit. Yes, one. I don't remember the names right now, but one propagates changes and then the commit mark, and one propagates. So the changes are not visible until the commit is done. Yes. So if this works this way. So the changes are not visible until the commit is done. Then it's the false progress is not a big issue in normal run, and you can detect the situation when the false progress appeared. Yes, and on the other way, it might be a problematic. So. But I don't think that actually the quorum problems are that often scenario.
So I don't think the quorum problem. Yeah, the quorum problem is probably not something you need to worry about. And I'm asking like the engineers specifically on when false progress occurs. But what we see today with customers is that they do reads off of active secondaries if they have some sort of like way to handle the false progress that is returned. If you're sensitive to how often that comes back, then exactly when that'll happen is something I'm following up on right now. But to your original question, if you're having like concerns about doing writes and reads like solely off the primary, then what we recommend is having some of those reads done from the active secondary as well, if you're okay with getting some false progresses once in a while.
Sure. Cool. Thank you.
The next question is from a developer experience standpoint. Are there any requirements for the SDK version to match the NuGet package version being used?
So Ben, double kind of intervention to the local cluster. So number one, so SDK. We have a weird way of defining our SDK. We're actually trying to. So this is my chance to get to the whiteboard and do boxes. we actually are trying to clean that up here in the next semester. So there's a thing you find in WebPI that we call the SDK, sort of like the Uber package, right? That thing contains the runtime, and then it actually contains two executables. It contains the runtime. There's another executable that installs the SDK, and that's sort of broken into a few things. There's a set of tools. There's a set of scripts, which is mainly integration to tooling. So you have the VS tools as well. Well, the VS tools actually doesn't come in the SDK today.
but the VS tools are sort of on top of this, but the script is mainly for integration with VS. And then, of course, there are the NuGet packages, which we carry in that SDK package just for offline scenarios. So when we refer to SDK, it can either be that Uber package, but you also probably hear a lot of people refer to SDK and then just meaning the NuGet packages. So the things that we support in terms of versioning is that we always support backward compatibility between runtime and NuGet. So let's say you could have, now we're going to release a 6.3 version, so you can have a runtime with 6.3, and then you can use the NuGet versions that came with 6.2, which for obvious reasons were called 3.1. Where the ones that we're going to release with 6.3 is then going to be called 3.2. So this combination we will always support, having the NuGet packages being behind the runtime version. But this Uber SDK package actually also carries the 3-point-something version. So if you install 3.2, the NuGet is in there would actually be 3.2, and the runtime will be 3.6. So you'd have to use a different set of NuGet packages, or older NuGet packages. Actually, we're talking about the reason why the version numbers are off is because we had to rev the NuGet packages earlier than we did 6.0. But I think that .NET Core has changed to different version standard, where the SDK is not semantically versioned, but it actually follows the version of the .NET standard or something like that. So that you can always figure out which one is delivered, which one is remote when it changes that. So that's in terms of requirement and how we support that. So the only thing that you can do, you cannot have a set of NuGet pieces or SDK that were released after the runtime that you try to run them on. So the thing here is that there's actually just no guarantees. We're not blocking you. So basically just be runtime errors when you try to call APIs or stuff that has changed or things that aren't there in the runtime. And about the administrative permission to debug service traffic applications on the local cluster, the reason why we can't do that today is basically because of the I think it's the system drivers we have, which causes Service Fabric to run under a user account that has to be, I think it has to run under system or something like that, or network. A low-level privileged system account. The cluster has to run under that on Windows, and because the processes are being spun up by the same user that runs the cluster, you need admin permission to debug into that.
Right. Is it possible to just run the runtime as the user itself? Like, are there obstacles in doing that?
Yeah, I don't think it will work because of the leaf layer driver. So I'm pretty sure that it will not work. We really want to see if we can get the runtime on Windows to also be able to run inside a container. So that so anyways, it's a little bit off the topic, but it actually, in order to do that, we need to fix that permission here. We need to fix that permission stuff around the drivers. So it's really down in the runtime. We have that thing that causes the requirement.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a shame to bump this question.
Yeah, it's about microservices and curls.
Maybe I should move the question to GitHub.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it's more about getting this doc, and I don't think we have anything today yet anyway. But it's good feedback.
I thought we stripped out most of the RocksDB stuff in our code base.
RocksDB, where are we at later? Is it a different question?
No, Marcin and I were just talking.
No.
Okay, we're off on a different topic.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Point taken. Let's forward this. Let's get some attention to the issue you raised here.
Yeah, this is good feedback, Mark. We'll
find someone, Mark, to help dive into that.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Down to the final last 5 minutes.
Yes, one second.
The lightning round begins.
By the way, you met Kavita?
Kavita, sorry.
You guys. Hello.
She's the new PM on our team. Recently joined. You were here in the morning section?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You don't know everybody. You want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi all. I'm Kavita Gowda. I'm a new PM on the team, and I'm learning like you guys. And one day I'll be contributing to you guys. And this is a great team. I'm enjoying with each one of them.
That's what you say today.
Yeah. We'll reach next month and we'll talk. Ask me a question.
All right, good. There's a
People
good
stick
question.
around. Some people stick around. Most people stick around.
Can you talk a little about the roadmap? What are our priorities?
What are your priorities? So, I mean, our biggest priority right now is getting that mesh thing out in the public preview. That is for sure. And it's going to happen very, very, very soon. And as you probably heard about, if you follow along with the mesh stuff and the build announcement, things like that, we're introducing this new application model or the resource model inside Service Fabric, which are basically the runtime pieces we're looking at. So our main priority now is making sure that we drive that thing to to a level in terms of integration around all the way from developer experience to operational readiness with monitoring and diagnostics and all those things. Within before we can actually go and make the product or that service general available. One thing that's very important to remember is that a lot of the stuff that we do to enable the Azure Service Fabric mesh services are improvements we do to the Service Fabric runtime, which means that if you run Service Fabric clusters today, when we go ahead and release the 6.3 runtime version, you actually have the resource model in there. And if some of you have downloaded the private preview bits of 6.3, or sorry, of the tooling for mesh, you actually have a 6.3 cluster runtime locally. So a lot of these things, are actually core runtime improvements that we're going to make and new stuff being put in there. But the main reason for it is the ability to have a multi-tenant service like mesh and being able to do that. That being said, I mean, this is sort of like the new thing. In all the planning stuff we're doing, and we're actually doing a lot of planning these days, our P0, priority 0, the thing that we cannot fail with, is to make sure that you guys who are running Service Fabric, can keep running Service Fabric, and whatever problems you run into, the improvements that you need, that we're going to get to them, and we're going to help you there. So it includes a lot of the stuff we are in preview. We want to get to, we're going to get to GA those as well. I remember there was a question about the backup and restore service, but we really need to close these down and bring these to conclusion. The reverse proxy for Linux that we've been talking about for a while is out now as well.
Yes, it's in preview form today, so you can go to the GitHub.
Yeah, so that's the thing that's gone out. A big part of mesh is actually the whole work with Unmo and the intelligent routing.
Yeah.
And again, it's a thing that's going to work on the runtime layer. So it's definitely a thing you're going to get benefits from in the core runtime product as well. I think those are the main, the main priorities. There's a Linux standalone.
Yep, and also open source.
And of course, getting the open source.
Continuing on our open source effort is a big priority for the team, and making sure that we complete the promise that we had there.
All right, guys, we got 1 minute and 2 questions.
With ability, you get a number of infrastructure benefits. With reliability, you get a higher level. So any other benefits through, though, apart from just listing metals to each incremented card number? Are there any other benefits? Are there any other benefits? Well, actually, there is. Oh, let me think. So one of them hooks into the host layer.
Yes, so the durability tier. I think Whit understands this because he says the durability tier gives you the infrastructure benefits. The durability tier Yeah.
So yeah, of course. So the viewability, yeah, okay. So for that, with what you think about is the that you can hold off sort of Azure to mess around with your hosts for like 10 minutes or I don't know,
2 hours for gold.
10 minutes or 2 hours.
Yeah.
So the question is basically on the reliability side, if there is things like that. No, it basically, as far as I know, it's just the number of replicas you run with on the system service.
Yeah. So the reliability tier is purely just the number of replicas that you need for your system services. It's just increasing.
What is the progress with Envoy Windows port? I guess on a progress bar, it's moving. I don't know, Martin. I don't know. We have committed dates for that. I actually think we have it. I've seen it work. I've seen it run. Envoy on Windows. Yeah. So it is working. But from having it just working and being able to forward stuff, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know what the. I don't think we have anything. I don't think we have anything published about how it will end up looking.
Marcin said that's good information.
Yeah, it's a
good
great
start.
start. It's a
Around
great
it.
start. We got a package.
You start with Joe on that. All right, perfect. Thanks, everyone. We're up against the clock. So there doesn't seem to be any more questions. So we'll go ahead and close this out.
Will this video be made available somewhere else?
Yes.
Absolutely. Who is that? Tejas?
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So they'll both be on our blog.
No,
Actually on YouTube. We post them on YouTube. Yeah, all 25 of them. Post on YouTube and in Yammer if you're part of Azure Advisors.
Got it. Okay, thank you guys.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks for the great questions, everybody.
Yep. Bye.
See you.
All right, let's close the recording.